and then that's when the snake ate the cow. So now we'll go ahead and get into Fables, and we'll get a chance to get into our fun stuff, and then we're going to go to Fables. Hopefully now that we have our notebooks back, first thing we did was go through there, cross out the old table of contents, and then cross out all those dead pages we don't care about, and then we made our first entry into the new table of contents, our brand new shiny notebooks that smell like brand new cars. And we got to Fable notes, and then we got into what Fables are, which are short little stories that will entertain us in one way or another. And we talked about our types of fables, and then we talked about traditional. And now I was going to ask you, what does the word traditional mean? Or what does the word tradition mean? Which connected back to the lottery. We talked about tradition then. 3 names.
Sort of like a pattern that you follow.
You're on the right track, more so than just a pattern. That can be. Jordan?
It's like a type of event sort of ish thing.
Getting closer again. Maya?
Something that's been happening for a long time.
Next one. It's like a pattern of events that you've been doing for a long time. So traditions are these things that you routinely do and that your family's been doing for a long time. So traditional fables are ones that have been around for
A long time.
way to fill that in. A long time. So a traditional fable will be the ones that you guys are going to be familiar with. They're the ones that have been around for thousands upon thousands of years. As an example, here's a traditional fable that most people are somewhat familiar with. It's called The Tortoise and the Hare. If you've never heard The Tortoise and the Hare, I'll give you the quick version. If you have heard it, then yeah, it'll be the quick version. So, set in the woods, and one day you have a tortoise, which is like a turtle, but then it'll go in water, and then you have a hare, which is like a rabbit, but it's furrier. And so you have this tortoise and their hare, and they're like talking in the woods, and the tortoise is like, I'm pretty fast, and the hare's like, I'm faster. And the tortoise is like, well, prove it. Like, let's have a race. So they go in the woods, they find a little path, and they take like the hare takes like his ear, and like draws a little line in there. Like, let's have a race. And they bring a bear over, because why not? And the bear comes over, and he's like, when I clap my hands, you're going to take off running. They're like, all right, go. And they both get on a line, and the bear goes, roar, and he claps his hands, and they take off running. Big dust goes up everywhere. And rabbit takes off running, and all of a sudden the dust settles, and then there's the tortoise like doing his little tortoise thing, but running. I mean, like he is sprinting. I mean, you can tell because it's like and just going as fast as his little turtle feet can take him. And the hare gets like way past him, turns around and sees the tortoise, and he's like, "Oh, that guy is ridiculous." So he decides to taunt him, because that's what you do when you're winning. You taunt the other team. And so he decides to taunt the turtle by laying in the middle of the racetrack and just taking a nap. He's like, like tucks his ears behind his head, because that's why rabbits have ears, is to give them cushions when they take naps. And he tucks them back there and lays down, and the turtle just, a turtle. It's like a tortoise and a turtle. It's a rare breed. And so the turtle just keeps on doing the little and eventually he catches up where the hare is sleeping, and because he's running as fast as he can, turtles run quietly, it's a well-known fact. He goes quietly right past the hare, doing his little run thing, and he stretches out his neck as far as it can go, and all of a sudden it was the creaking of his neck coming out, wakes the hare, and the hare's like, oh snap, and turns around and jumps up and jumps for the finish line right as the turtle crosses it. And the turtle ends up winning. And the hare learns a lesson. And what is the lesson that the hare learns?
Don't get cocky.
Good. That would work. That's not enough of the story. But I do like that one also.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady wins the race. The idea of... Now, even though you know that's what the moral is, slow and steady wins the race, what does that mean when someone says slow and steady wins the race? What is that supposed to actually get you to learn from it? Jordan?
You don't always have to go just like sprint fast or anything like that.
Nice. So the idea of taking your time. If you have a book report, don't wait the last minute and be like, it's due tomorrow morning, go! And then try to take it instead, or you give a test, like as soon as you get like, first one done, and then slap it down like, it doesn't work that way. Take your time, you'll do better on it. Now, the thing with morals is, they don't always work. If you're lining up for a cross-country race, don't turn to like your best friend and be like, slow and steady wins the race. And like, you're just like, you're going to lose. And so that moral's not going to apply to you. So make sure that they work at the right time. But that would be an example of a fable that is a traditional one that's been around for a long time, one that you guys have heard of. After a while, they came up with a newer type of one called a verse fable. Now, a verse fable, similar to a traditional one, what it covers, but the trick here is how it is written. Do you guys know what a verse is? V-E-R-S-E. Not verse is, like you're going to whoop somebody, because that's also fun, but different. But verse
Is it like a bunch of fables, but each fable is like a small little page, like they have verses in the Bible?
Getting on the right track. Verses from the Bible would be on that same idea, but how are verses in the Bible usually written? You also know verses from another thing too, not just from the Bible. Hegels.
Well, they're kind of like separated into little parts, and then like the sentences are numbered.
You're on the right track. I don't know if you guys have paid attention sometimes with the verses in the Bible, but a lot of times, those of you guys who are in choir, you should also know what a verse is.
No,
Anyone inquire in here? One person.
You know what a verse is?
like the measure,
Nicely done. What's that?
A section.
sections of a song.
There you go. And so it's the section of the song. The same thing in the Bible, the verse are the little sections. This one's not written in sections, but usually verses are set up so that they rhyme. In the Bible, a lot of times they originally were set up that same way, where it'd be rhyming because it's easier to memorize. And so a verse fable is a verse fable that is set up so that it,
Right.
and if you have something written out so it rhymes, what do you call that? It is a
Verse. No.
Poem.
Right.
nicely
It's
done.
a doctor's system.
I
A
did it.
poem. So a verse fable is just written out as a poem. It's just written out where it rhymes. Usually it's going to be a traditional fable. It's just a traditional fable that rhymes as you get through it. As an example, you could have something along the lines of, there once was a turtle and a hare. The turtle said, "We'd race, but I just don't care. Hey, how about you and me? Let's get together and race to that tree. And then we'll see who's faster, because I'll be your
That's
master." I'm not good at all this stuff. But again, and so you would, the same idea, but it's written out so it rhymes the whole way through. And that's what's called a verse fable. And then the third one is called a modern fable. Do you know what a modern, well, actually you have what the word modern means. We'll go from there. Zero. What's modern, Dunbert?
Stuff like right now.
Nicely done.
new thing.
We're going to use a really technical term for this. Today-y. So,
I use that every day.
today-y stuff? I know, it's very today-y. And so a modern fable uses today-y stuff. And what it'll be is it's a fable that's set where you use computers, cars, school, people like that, or things like that. So as opposed to a traditional one where it's going to be dealing with things in the woods, these are going to still have animals, but your animals will be taking place more in like the real...
A zoo.
Let me give you an example.
An apartment
Same story, because we've already done 2 examples from it. We'll stick with our same tortoise and the hare. But now, the turtle is on the chess team at Animal Junior High, and he's in the hallway, and he bumps into the hare who's on the track team. And the hare like starts pushing him around, but the turtle just pulls his arms in like it's pushing into the lock, and like a dong. He just laughs at it to get like his turtle shell. And the hare's like, "Let's throw down." The turtle's like, "Whatever, I've got a shell." He's like, "Let's race." The turtle's like, "Whatever, I'm smarter than you, I can do that." So they decide to have a race. Like, after school, let's throw down, because that happens a lot at schools. And so they decide to head out to the track after school for a race. And they go out there, and all their friends are out there. There's like a peacock and a bear and like a cheetah and stuff like that. They're like, "Get them!" The cheetah's on the track team also because they're good friends. And so they go out there for the race. They both line up on the track. Like, all right, when the bear goes rawr, we take off running. And they go, yay! The bear goes rawr, and they take off. They take off again, and the hare's like, dust comes up, and the turtle's out there. He's like, chess team, chess team, chess team, chess team, and doing this little running thing as fast as he can. And the hare gets halfway around. All of a sudden, out of the corner of his eye, he sees the squirrel cheerleaders flipping their tails. He's like, whoa! And like pauses, like, hey, how you doing? And goes over and starts talking to the squirrels. And he's like, they're talking back, making plans for the week. And like, hey, shouldn't you be racing? He's like, no. He's like, look at that turtle. I can beat him anytime. And the turtle's out there like, turtle, 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 turtle. Do his little turtle thing. And all of a sudden, the turtle gets almost around the finish line. And the girls, I'm sorry, the squirrels are like, hey, flip, flip, flip. Their little tails. Flip, flip. He's like, he's going to beat you. And they're like, no. And takes off running as fast as he can and gets up there. And the turtle sticks out his neck and wins right as the hare goes jumping across. And then all of the hare's friends go and beat him up and make fun of him because he got beat by a turtle and he gets ostracized from school and has to change buildings. That becomes our new modern fable. So it's the same idea, but it's sort of been changed to take place in current times.
It's a good story.
fascinating. So those are going to be our 3 types of fables we're going to get into. Every fable that we do has to finish the same way. And what is it every fable is supposed to do for us?
A lesson.
Nicely done. It's going to be called a moral. Every fable has to have a moral, and there's a reason why they have to have a moral too. And the moral is just the lesson that we learn, the advice, something to make us a better person. You know, if you're large writing, you're going to take like 12 pages for these notes. I wish you the best of luck. It turns out, years ago, and by years I mean like thousands of years ago, they didn't have schools. They just let kids grow up to be stupid. The problem with letting kids grow up to be stupid is that they're stupid. I know. Some of you guys are like, Mr. Grove, we have schools now, and some kids are still stupid. I know. There's only so much we can do. But what happened was, way back then, you would have the kids running around without school being stupid, and they would do things like pick up large rocks and hit their friends in the head with them. And they would just whack them right in the head, and their friends would fall down. And the old people would see this, like, why did you just hit your friend with a rock? They're like, oh, looks like fun. Whack, and hit another kid. They're like, well, don't do that. They're like, whack, why not? They're like, well, and the old people realized they had to teach the young people not to be stupid. So they started coming up with these stories. And so the fables were the very first stories they started telling to kids to prevent them from becoming stupid. So these fables started as the very first lessons. And so you'd have old people in town and be like, hey, don't hit that kid in the head with a rock. They're like, thwack, why not? They're like, because, haven't you ever heard the story? They're like, thwack, what's the story? They're like, the story of the bear and the chipmunk. I'm like, no. They're like, well, put the rock down. They're like, thwack, okay. And so they bring the kids together and they tell them a story about the bear and the chipmunk and how the bear used to go around and hitting all of his little friends, the chipmunks, on the head with big rocks. And he'd go around like, hey, chipmunks, and like smash them. And then all of the bear's friends died, and the bear grew up alone and was very sad. And like, the moral of the story is, don't hit your friends in the head with rocks. And I'm like, oh, that's a good. And so that's where these fables began. It was just these old people telling stories to kids. So this was the very first version of school, was telling kids these different stories. Now, because of that, there's 5 rules that are going to go into the characteristics. They're basically the 5 rules of how to build a fable. So you can tell the difference if a story is a fable or just some weird old person talking to you. Because old people do that. Sometimes they just start talking all the time. So the first most important thing they have to have, what is it we already know a fable has to have? Step 1. They have to have a moral. If it's not going to teach you anything, then it's just a creepy old person talking to you. So it has to have something that you're supposed to learn from it. Some advice. Don't hit your friends in the heads with rocks. Or slow and steady wins the race. Or never try to juggle knives on your first try. Something like that, where you're going to have some things that you learn from it. Now, the problem was, these old people telling stories to these little kids, they realized that kids oftentimes wouldn't pay attention. Like, let me tell you a story about me and my friend Joey. When we were kids, the kids were like, boring! And they already stopped paying attention. So in order to trick the kids into learning, we couldn't use old people as the characters. We turned out, what is it that kids love paying attention to? Because they're fuzzy. So usually you're going to have animals as your characters. Every once in a while we'll throw in humans just for funsies. But 95% of the time you're going to have animals as your main characters because kids love animals. They're delicious and made of meat. And so because that's what kids would pay attention to. Now, with this, as our learning went along, years later, there was a company that realized they could make money by using animals to make movies to sell to children because kids loved animals so much. And this company that made bajillions of dollars making movies about small animals is?
Disney.
Disney had the same idea. They realized that kids love the fuzzy little animals. They paid attention to them, and that was that same idea. That's why it works. Kids dig animals. Now the problem is, once we figured out that we couldn't use old people as in the story, we had to use animals. Old people would tell these really long stories, and kids kept tuning out. Like, sit down. This is going to take me a couple hours. One day, there was a bear. And kids already tune you out. If you want to get a kid to pay attention all the way to the end of your story, how long should the story be?
Short.
So they have to be short. And how short is short? It shouldn't take you more than a couple minutes to tell the story. Because after that, kids are like, oh, fly, shoot, wall. And so they're going to be, so if you want to get all the way to the end, it should be short. Written-wise, they're like a page or less. Talking-wise, it should take you just a few minutes to get through the entire story. And that's it. Also, in order to have Think about the classes you go to. There's some classes you pay more attention to than others.
This class.
One of the big reasons why you'll pay attention to some classes more than others is how much you smile in that class. The more you smile, it seems to activate the learning neurons. Apparently they're in your cheeks. Tomorrow we'll get to number 4 and we'll find out why you should pay attention in class.
Is that why we like this class so much?
Nah, this is because I'm just a good looking guy. Make sure you bring back your notebook tomorrow. We'll get into more fables and fun stuff like that. Those of you who owe me things, make sure you turn them in. If you're turning in passes, names on them, on the X, run away.